Picture this: Mississippi, 1936. The air hangs thick with summer heat even at midnight. A young man stands alone where two dirt roads converge, forming a perfect cross beneath his feet. Spanish moss drapes the ancient oak trees like funeral shrouds, and somewhere in the darkness, a nightbird calls. A sound that could be mourning or perhaps laughter. Robert Johnson clutches his guitar, its wood worn smooth by calloused fingers that have never quite found the music they seek. The Crossroads stretches in four directions: north toward Memphis, south toward the Delta plantations, east toward hope, west toward oblivion. But tonight, all paths lead to the same destination, a bargain that will echo through American folklore for nearly a century. This is the story of the Devil's Crossroads, where talent meets temptation, where legends are born, and where the very soul of American ambition reveals its darkest truth. The legend of Robert Johnson begins not with triumph, but with failure. By all accounts, the young man was a mediocre guitarist at best, competent enough to play at local gatherings, but hardly the stuff of musical immortality. He would sit in the back of juke joints, watching as Son House and other Delta blues masters commanded audiences with their supernatural skill. Robert wanted that power, that ability to make a guitar weep and wail with human emotion. Then something changed. According to the story passed down through generations of blues musicians, Robert disappeared for several months. When he returned, he was transformed. His fingers danced across the frets with impossible grace. His voice carried the weight of ancient sorrow and forbidden knowledge. He could play anything, any style, any song, as if the guitar had become an extension of his very soul. The explanation, whispered in the smoky corners of Mississippi juke joints, was as old as human desire itself. Robert Johnson had made a deal with the devil at the Crossroads. He had traded his immortal soul for earthly mastery, following a tradition that stretched back through centuries of folklore. The young man who had struggled to keep time now played with the rhythm of eternity itself, but the price was clear. 27 years of life, and then collection. Robert Johnson died at 27, poisoned by a jealous husband, leaving behind only 29 recorded songs and a legend that would outlive them all. But why the Crossroads? What makes this particular symbol so powerful in American consciousness that it has endured for generations? To understand the legend of Robert Johnson, we must first understand the profound symbolism embedded in the Crossroads itself. The Crossroads represents what anthropologists call a liminal space, a threshold between worlds, between states of being. It is neither here nor there, but suspended in the eternal moment of choice. Every crossroads demands a decision: which path to take, which future to embrace, which version of yourself to become. In this sense, every crossroads is a moment of transformation, a place where destiny hangs in the balance. In the African traditions that came to America through the horror of the slave trade, the crossroads held sacred significance. The Yoruba god Legba, known as the guardian of the crossroads, was not a devil, but a trickster deity who taught humanity essential skills: music, dancing, even the art of survival itself. Legba was the keeper of thresholds, the one who opened doors between the world of the living and the realm of the spirits. When enslaved Africans were forbidden their traditional religions, these beliefs didn't disappear. They transformed, blending with European folklore to create something uniquely American. The European tradition brought its own darkness to the Crossroads. In medieval England, criminals and suicides were buried at crossroads, the theory being that their confused souls would be unable to find their way back to haunt the living. The intersection of four roads would bewilder them, keeping them trapped in eternal indecision. Stakes were driven through their hearts not out of cruelty, but out of a desperate hope that they might finally find rest. When these traditions merged in the American South, they created something new and terrifying: the Crossroads as a place of supernatural transaction. No longer was it simply a site of confusion for the damned. It became a marketplace where the living could bargain with forces beyond human comprehension. The Crossroads symbol speaks to something fundamental about the American experience. This is a nation built on the promise that anyone can remake themselves, that talent and ambition can overcome any obstacle. But there has always been a shadow side to this optimism, a nagging suspicion that extraordinary success requires extraordinary sacrifice. The Crossroads legend gives form to this anxiety. What if the American dream itself requires a deal with darker forces? Consider how perfectly the Crossroads embodies the American paradox. It represents unlimited possibility, 4 paths stretching toward infinite horizons. Yet it also represents the paralysis of choice, the fear that selecting one path means forever losing the others. At the Crossroads, we confront not just our desires, but our willingness to pay for them. The Robert Johnson legend didn't emerge in isolation. It grew from deep roots in American soil, nourished by generations of folklore about supernatural bargains and crossroads encounters. Throughout the South, practitioners of hoodoo, a folk magic tradition blending African spirituality with European and Native American influences, had long used crossroads for ritual purposes. Unlike the Christian narrative of selling one's soul to Satan, hoodoo crossroads rituals were about learning and transformation. Practitioners would come to the crossroads at midnight, not to bargain with evil, but to commune with Legba or other crossroads spirits who could teach essential skills. They brought offerings of rum, tobacco, and coins, seeking knowledge that could only be gained at the threshold between worlds. The blues tradition embraced this imagery with characteristic ambiguity. Songs like Johnson's Crossroad Blues blur the line between the sacred and the profane, between African spiritual practice and Christian morality. I went to the crossroads, tried to flag a ride, Johnson sings. But is he seeking transportation or transformation? The beauty of blues poetry lies in its ability to hold multiple truths simultaneously. Southern Gothic literature seized upon the crossroads motif with particular intensity. Writers like William Faulkner and Flannery O'Connor understood that the crossroads represented more than just a geographical feature. It was a state of mind, a moment of moral reckoning. In their stories, characters inevitably find themselves at metaphorical crossroads, forced to choose between salvation and damnation, between their better angels and their darkest impulses. The legends spread beyond the Delta, taking root in American popular culture with remarkable tenacity. The crossroads became a recurring symbol in everything from country music to rock and roll, from Hollywood films to contemporary literature. Each generation rediscovers the power of the crossroads metaphor, recognizing in it something essential about the human condition. Why does the crossroads legend endure? Why, in an age of scientific rationality and technological progress, do we still tell stories about midnight bargains with supernatural forces? The answer lies not in our belief in literal devils, but in our recognition of deeper truths about ambition, morality, and the price of extraordinary achievement. The Crossroads legend speaks to a distinctly American anxiety about success. In a culture that celebrates individual achievement above all else, we simultaneously fear that our successes might be somehow illegitimate, that we've taken shortcuts we shouldn't have taken. The image of the crossroads bargain gives form to this guilt, the suspicion that our talents, our opportunities, our very good fortune might have come at a cost we've forgotten or chosen to ignore. Consider how many American success stories contain elements that mirror the crossroads legend. The entrepreneur who sacrifices family relationships for business success. The artist who compromises their integrity for commercial appeal. The politician who makes deals with unsavory characters to advance their career. In each case, the crossroads appears, not as a literal intersection of dirt roads, but as a moment of moral choice where one path leads toward conventional success and another toward, what? Obscurity? Authenticity? Peace of mind? The legend also reflects our complicated relationship with talent itself. Americans want to believe that success comes from hard work and determination, yet we're fascinated by stories of seemingly supernatural ability. Robert Johnson's transformation from mediocre guitarist to blues master represents both our highest aspirations and our deepest fears about what extraordinary talent might require of us. Perhaps most importantly, the Crossroads legend acknowledges something that American optimism often tries to deny: that every choice has consequences, that every path taken means other paths abandoned forever. The Crossroads forces us to confront the weight of our decisions, the reality that we cannot have everything we want without paying a price. The truth about Robert Johnson's transformation will likely never be known. Did he really meet a supernatural figure at a Mississippi crossroads? Or did he simply practice obsessively during those missing months, finally achieving the mastery that had long eluded him? The factual answer matters less than the symbolic truth the legend represents. Every one of us stands at crossroads throughout our lives, moments when we must choose between safety and risk, between the known and the unknown, between who we are and who we might become. In these moments, we all face the fundamental question posed by the Crossroads legend. What are we willing to sacrifice for the things we most desire? The crossroads where Robert Johnson allegedly made his bargain still exists, or rather, many crossroads throughout Mississippi claim to be the site of that legendary encounter. This multiplicity is fitting, because the real crossroads isn't a geographical location. It's a state of mind, a moment of decision that each of us encounters again and again throughout our lives. The legend of Robert Johnson reminds us that we are all, in our own ways, making bargains with forces beyond our complete understanding. Every choice we make, every path we take, every dream we pursue comes with a price. The question isn't whether we'll face the crossroads. It's whether we'll recognize them when we do, and whether we'll be prepared for the cost of the bargains we make there. In the end, perhaps that's why the legend endures. Not because we believe in literal devils waiting at midnight crossroads, but because we understand that the most important negotiations we'll ever conduct are the ones we have with ourselves, at the crossroads of our own ambitions and fears. The crossroads are calling. The question is, what will you bring to bargain with? And what will you be willing to leave behind?